Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Dissolving the Divide. We have an exciting conversation today around sexuality and the divisions between men and women. Hello, Derek. How are you today?
Bonjour, Leslie, and we have our first French guest
Woohoo.
today. I'm doing pretty lovely out in the south of France, and Brigitte, I believe, I want to say you're from Strasbourg?
No, Brussels. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting because, okay, so yeah, that makes sense. You,
Yes. But
some of your background, you did a little, art and movie scripture, trying
yes,
to like, and maintaining and working with
yes,
an art gallery. And
yes,
yeah, it's interesting, like the whole 9/11 thing, and after that going down the rabbit holes, like that's pretty old school for
yeah.
today's standards, so to speak. Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm going to say something. But I hope this will give people some hope. It doesn't matter if you go to college or not, because I've been a constant dropout student. I was on my way to study psychoanalysis and did my 3-year Jungian therapy. And then after 3 years, I realized I didn't want a commitment with a patient, because when I heard backstories, of what therapists were going through and how much regrets they had after 5-10 years, and I said, okay, I don't want to sign up for that. So, and then philosophy also. I say, okay, what can I do with philosophy? I say, I drop out. And then I find myself, my mother called me and says, oh, I have a friend who has a friend who is looking for a partner in a gallery. So I became a gallerist, and it was a nice little gallery. We had, it was not the big, nothing fancy, but we had a nice turnout, or turnaround, I don't know what you say, nicer public, coming to our exhibitions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and we were selling decently, yes. And then at the time also, I was applying for a grant. I got the European Script Fund gave me a grant to write a screenplay. But the problem with Europe, I'm trying to make it short here. The problem with Europe is there is no industry like in America. So they gave many people like myself a grant to write a screenplay, and there was no real producer who could buy, because art, especially back then, was depending from the state. So, however, I came to America, got married, and I was on my way, really connecting with Phoenix Pictures and some good people, who really want to help me and believe in my work. And when 9/11 happened, and then I say, oh no, and then, like I told you, Derek, I started investigating, and I fell into the rabbit hole. I never came back from it. And then I changed my life completely. And I said, no, I'm living on farm, growing food and making videos myself.
Oh, awesome.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you fell, but you got back up and you're on your feet. And actually, yeah, last year we were talking about possibly linking up in America some way, somehow, living off the good old land in a more free inner society within the outer society that's kind of contrived and corrupted and all that stuff that we're not in love with. And to get back onto the topic of love, I'm really happy and excited for this conversation, because it's such a taboo topic, even within like any kind of truth-seeking stuff, or even like the new age thing now. And there's some contrived issues revolving around love, and there's the whole
Yes.
oh, there's like tantric love making now, or sex and all this stuff. And I'm really interested. We're gonna have this is gonna be a 2-part series.
But I would say that tantric relationships are the concept of tantric relationship is sold like, oh yes, it is. If you cannot do it, you will never know, what you are missing. But it's more like a state of mind, and not everybody can attain that, because that comes along with a certain awareness. And Mantak Shia, with really the who Maria knows very well also, you know, is if you are not willing to be really one with your partner in secret relationship and be really supportive of your partner also in many ways, you know, if it is just a sexual desire that you want to achieve this way, it is not going to work. Yeah. It comes along with a whole package, you know, and people go and do tantric yoga thinking that it is going to happen, you know, with their current relationship or the next, and it is I think it is a little bit deceptive. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I wanted to just say real quick, there's just like watered down versions of this, and obviously when it gets mainstream, it just becomes like convoluted and all this stuff, and it doesn't really help in the end as much as it's supposed to. So yeah, Leslie, I know you wanted to say some good things about this. So.
Yeah, no, I would really love for you to summarize your study around sexuality and start to identify what you feel like are the most important points that you really want to bring out today in our conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. You know, when I was much younger, I was very adventurous. Of course, I got married, and the time I was married, I was very serious, seriously involved, you know, no fooling around. But, you know, I've been 10 years living as a single. So I have experienced life and sexuality. I want to know everything. And, you know, in the end, it led me on this path of asceticism, you know. I am, you know, more inclined now to say, okay, I wait for the right person, because I know it goes the other way. I know what is happening on the other side. And really, I don't want that anymore, because it is, you know, when you want to understand sexuality and think, oh yeah, I'm going to try this and try that, you end up burning yourself out, and it is not. And the conclusion is that you have to go back to purity, the purity of the soul, and then also another problem that you have is that when you are kind of promiscuous, the more you have adventure, the more you have partners, you know, you have their auras, you know, their electromagnetic fields are contaminating yours. So becoming more and more, becoming faithful and willing to bond with your partner, a real partner, is very difficult, very challenging.
Because, yeah, totally. There's that fragmentation, if you will.
Yes, the more partners you have, the more fragmented you become. Exactly, Derek. So, and when I see this this era of pornography, you know, and young men cannot even bond with women anymore because they think that this what they see on the screen, you know. Yeah. So this is very, and also porn is promoting a lot of promiscuity, and this make men willing to try always do something different. So they are less inclined to be faithful. Right. So now I've been living by myself for many years, and really I've done a lot of self-healing, and I'm very glad that I saw finally what sexuality was about. Yeah, from experience also.
So in terms of I guess the downside or the risks of being lighthearted around sexual encounters, you know, superficial encounters or multiple partners. A lot of people are into polyamory, you know, right these days, and promoting that. What do you see as the risks or the detriment to that lifestyle?
Well, I would say that as long as you don't want any kids, that's fine. And both agree on the contract. But
Right.
often, what I've noticed often is that the woman is going more to accept because to follow a partner because she's a giver, you know, and she doesn't want to lose a partner. Because a man, I would say, is goal oriented. A man might be tempted to cheat. It's like, you know, legal cheating, I feel, in many cases, because the true polyamory stance is very, very seldom. It has to be achieved with two partners or more partners who really want to live as free being. When freedom is the motive, and I would say when the freedom remains the main motive, then it is going to work out. If it is a sacrifice from either or, you know, or say, okay, let's do that, and maybe it is going to help reconnect our relationship, or, you know, so it is not working. And I would say like 80% of the people are doing that with the hope that they are going to repair what has been lost.
Seems to me that there's a high need for maturity, you know, emotional intelligence and clear communication, and very a commitment to being like fully honest, right, for the complexities of having multiple partners or a polyamorous kind of agreement. And I don't see that the majority of people have that level of intelligence or commitment to the transparency and the honesty, and even to know themselves well enough. You know, that's kind of my take on it. I think it's something that requires a really deep level of self-understanding and commitment to honesty. Yeah.
I just want to mention real quick, and I love the fact that Brigitte, you mentioned Maria, as in Maria West, representing that love, truth, and beauty. That's her website, and we've had her on. We had a really great conversation regarding like the interdivisional issues regarding the feminine, masculine energies. And she's done a lot of work and videos speaking upon this subject, and how we're kind of born into this like sex slave culture, like getting down to like some of the nitty-gritty things that are really unfortunate and not kind of like readily spoken in any kind of circles for the most part.
Yeah,
there are some, of course, but like as far as like sex trafficking and how children are born into these circles of families that are just selling off their kids for that, or just, you know, growing up as a child being molested, or all that stuff, and or just, you know, growing up, you know, with all this princess programming or prince programming and all this stuff that we see on the media and everything else that they're feeding you that is just not really a proper organic evolutionary way of one's self-exploration into their own sexuality and practicing it or exploring it with others, and really having that trial and error of love, and not having these weird societal expectations tied or saturated behind it or within it, unfortunately. And that, you know, carries on. It's not just like society, it could be family and stuff, or just, you know, take it back to ancient times when how many families had to, you know, put their kids towards either, okay, we're going to sell you off, or, you know, hook you up with these people because we need to align you with whatever bloodline, whatever aristocratic static, and, you know, the list goes on with all that stuff. So it's just interesting to see how sexuality, as Maria West puts it as well, is the lowest common denominator that we can all relate with, and also address and heal with through, you know, doing everyone's individual shadow work and relational shadow work and that kind of stuff, and, you know, rippling it out to from the micro to the macrocosm, and just trying to re-establish a true sense of happiness through our sexual relationships, with that foundation of love behind it.
Yeah, and it's
It's
not
that love
taught.
illusion,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. So I think that, and I don't want to sound like, too religious when I say that, because I am not. I really am more like of a pantheist type of believer, that we are all, that I believe that the universe is within me, and otherwise, but I feel like sexuality as it has been taught for centuries, is the tool of division between men and women. And because of patriarchy, it has imposed on women, to be like little submissive slaves and everything, and then and then it starts shifting. Or now men can also be submissive, or no, and then now they go after younger people, and soon at this stage, at this pace, sorry, adults will be able to have sex with 10, 11 years old completely legally, So this is, I think, I don't want to call it debauchery, but it is, I don't find another word right now, but really it is the tool to take down society.
Can you
Sodom and Gomorrah,
Yeah.
deprivation. Deprivation is better than.
Yeah, please expand on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a tool. So there's some conscious attempts to guide relationships between men and women, or, among people, in a certain way that is degrading, in a sense, or moving us away from our more natural connection opportunity, like our potential. And so I'd like, to share about, well, what is that potential that maybe our society hasn't really discovered, or isn't mainstream, and what, and what to watch out for also. Yeah.
This is, we are not on the right path, sexually speaking. No, not at all. And even, look at music clips, video clips, a lot too much sexuality. When a little 5-6 years old kid watch them, they think they have to behave like that, and they are going to be very sexualized by the culture very young, and this is not good. This is not good. A child has to remain a child. It's difficult to put some age there, but certainly not at 6-7 years old watching those videos, So yes. And
it's been soft porn, as I've labeled it as, and other people have, for years and years and years. It's out of control. I don't understand it. And then you're mixing in all these other programmings, transhumanism and all this stuff. As of late, it's just, it's directing humanity, again, away from a true organic timeline and our true evolutionary spirit that drives it, not just this convoluted bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, even putting in question the existence of gender, of man and woman, or masculine and feminine, where there's even like question about what is a woman, what is a man. It's very confusing. So children are growing up with this deep confusion around this. Yeah.
Yes, I don't know if you watched the documentary "What Is a Woman" by Matt Welch.
I haven't had a chance.
I heard a lot about it, but
on YouTube, on Rumble for free. You should watch it. I mean, I don't know. Those people have a PhDs, college degrees, and they really say whatever. They're really mind controlled by the system also, because some of them truly believe that it is the way it has to be.
And from what you said in the beginning, of as far as like, it doesn't matter if you have a college degree or whatnot, because there's a certain levels of indoctrination. And when people pay umpteen thousands of dollars year in, year out for their tuition, whatever, to go to these schools, there's a certain level of ego attachment behind it, especially if the individual is paying for it, especially out of the ass after the fact, through this, student loan debt system. That's horribly unacceptable. But that's another topic for another discussion. Back onto the main,
Yes.
subject.
So I would say also the whole field of psychology is also needs to be changed, and to start anew, because what they teach you is more patients go because they are suffering from division, fragmentation, cognitive fragmentation, and the message that they get from the shrink is that they have to run away from what makes them suffer, that they cannot face. So so in fact, instead of encouraging for a reconciliation, they say, oh no, that person is not for you, run away. Or your father, oh, don't forgive your father. You don't need to forgive your father. You just need to be emotionally self-sufficient. And people are stuck in therapy for years. I've known people in therapy for 10 years and they're still not doing better.
Maybe they should check a new therapist or whatever, or a psychotherapist, whatever these people are. And yeah, I've introduced Mario West as like your therapist's therapist, because a lot of therapists have their own fucking therapists, and it boggles the mind thinking about that. So like, yeah, it goes back to their scholarly education and what they've been through and what they learn, and what they all the things that aren't necessarily true, the distortions of truth and psychology, and real inner alchemy and shadow work, like Carl Jung and those types of people, Rudolf Steiner, for example, and Walter Russel, who you've studied under quite a bit. You're in a group apparently, and you sent us a really interesting article. And I'm interesting as to the graphic that I'm putting in the thumbnail, where there's the male and the female, and they're emitting the frequency vibe. But as far as the law of polarity, I see all there's only plus signs. Where's the negative aspects of that? And that's not to say like it's a negative or positive, like, oh, it's bad or good. It's just like in the law of polarity, there's a negative and positive charge to things, kind of like how there's
law of gender,
masculine and feminine. Yeah, exactly. Anything on that, Brigitte?
Well, I would say that it all starts in the brain, the mind principle that we have in the Hermetic philosophy. And it is true that when Walter Russel states that every action is initiated by light. I don't know what he says exactly on this page. I'm going to read it because I think the quote, it is worth quoting. So
who is Walter Russel? Familiarize us with who he is.
He was a contemporary of Nikola Tesla.
Okay.
And his work, especially delves into the mystical aspect of light, and why light is the prime cause of everything. And he says that sex is of all things from the beginning. And then it was not so surprising, he wrote that in the 50s before we could even witness it. And scientists now have observed an egg and a sperm, the moment where really the sperm gets into the egg, and they saw that there was all of a sudden like a sparkle of light at the moment the sperm enters the egg. So, and it is, I would say, it validates Walter Russel, you know?
Yeah.
Because all matter is made of light. And I would go even further. In our brain, you have synapses, and data is shared in form of electricity, you know, also light. That's why when you observe the brain, you know, and all these synapses interactions, you end up seeing stars because they all flash like that all the time, constantly. You know, it's like looking at the sky at night. You know, there is as above, so below here.
Yeah.
And so meaning that the thinking, whatever we may think of, always come from a duality, from a positive and a negative. The marriage or the wedding or alchemical wedding, from many other concepts, you know, that we hear, not saying that it is going to lead us to the truth immediately, because it's all, you know, a big, we have to do a lot of research to validate what we think, you know, and our conclusions. But I would say that all ideas are the result of a principle that wants us to unite what we feel, our emotions, and all the data that we see all around us. And that's why politics does a very good job, you know, to keep really both separated. They don't want us to discover that. So, and this divide, right and left, has been going on since ever. Because if this divide was fading or vanishing, you know, people would realize that, well, that they were so close to the truth, but they couldn't figure out how to get there. So I would say that it is very interesting to see how we can find more balance within ourselves when we stay out of this conflict, right and left, you know.
When we dissolve these, you know, fictional divides that are surrounding us 24/7 in a sense, and then we just go back into our, you know, core internal essence and kind of let that be taking over the majority of our presence.
Right. And withdrawing or detaching from a lot of that noise outside that's creating division and polarity and conflict. So what does this mean for people who are really seeking that deep connection, that deep sexual connection? What have you kind of learned or can come to conclude about the I guess most spiritual, I don't know if it's a spiritual union that you were talking about?
And also, can I add on to this question? Because, you know, what you touched upon, Brigitte, earlier kind of made me think, you know, like, because, yeah, there's a lot of people out there looking for ego validation, confirmation, and all this things that, you know, they're searching outside of themselves for what's, you know, supposed to be in them already, because they haven't gone through that initiation of that alchemical wedding. They haven't bridged the gaps between themselves to, you know, have that unity. And so without that, and having that true, pure love for self, as them good old folks at Levolution say, you know, if you don't love yourself, how can you give that and share with anyone else?
Yes, it might
If anything,
be.
it's going to be some kind of trauma bond, possibly.
Yeah.
That's,
Yes,
you know,
that
should
is
be addressed, you know, later on as well.
Yes, no, this is one same question, because the more trauma you have been through, and the more difficult it is going to bond and find a special someone that you want to be with for a long time, you know. And so I would say the key there is definitely first self-healing, I am not going to speak for, I'm not going to recommend that to everybody, but I personally did ayahuasca 20 times because when I start, I said, no, I need to when I before my first ceremony, I said, I need to do something with myself because I've been so torn apart, you know, by my trauma that I was carrying since my childhood, you know, that I needed to find a way to really to break the ice. And when I heard about ayahuasca, I said, oh, I need to try that. And it's now or never, you know, and it did work quite quickly, but, you know, it is a work in progress. And that's why I did it 20 times. And it was really feeling myself, you know, of all, you know, until you get to your own essence, and then you realize who you are really. So, but there is no, I would say, if you want to have a good relationship, definitely, I'm not going to say go and do ayahuasca, that's not true, but at least choose abstinence for quite a while, you know. I don't know, it's for every person is different, but try 1 month or 2 months and see where you are at with that, because we tend to choose our relationships to repair our sufferings, and it is not working. It may indeed work for a while, but, you know, that's not the long term doesn't speak that way. You know, you come back to the same old, you know, little demon that you have within you, it tells you to do otherwise. Yeah. So I would say self-healing is certainly key here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then when two healthy people, generally, I mean, healing is an ongoing process, but generally, you know, healed people come together, what is the potential that you see from that that self-healing? How does that then change the relating?
Well, I would say that definitely the relationship, when you start a relationship and you feel that sexuality is a priority, then I would say then maybe not, you are not on the right path, because often sexuality is used as a band-aid, you know, try to comfort us into this idea that we are wanted, that we are desired, that we matter, you know, that we count for our mate.
That validation.
Validation, exactly what you said, Derek. Mm-hmm. And so if you cannot have in the relationship and not have any intercourse for 2-3 weeks, then, and still having a good, decent interaction, it is, I think that's a barometer to see whether that person is the right one for you.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good wisdom in that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because sexuality and sexual interaction can really confuse things, and a lot of the hormones that get activated and the attachment, like the false attachment, you know.
Yeah.
Right, can confuse people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll share a little experience of my own life in recent times, even because I was celibate for 3 years actually, between 2020 2023, and it's kind of like going on a fast. You're weaning yourself off certain things that you used to almost on a daily basis. I'm not saying I had sex every fucking day, whatever, but just like take it as an allegory, metaphor, whatever. But and then reintroducing something, you have a newfound appreciation for the sexual intercourse and really trying to have a better experience than what you've had in the past, and incorporating that love vibe in so many ways. And like, I've had a phrase, you know, even when I was married and stuff, which, you know, really activated my heart-based intelligence to really dive down the rabbit hole like a, you know, I had to do something with my life and take control of it and, you know, prepare for a family eventually, possibly, which didn't happen, which is fine. But yeah, like getting divorced and all that really prompted some serious shadow work for me to go through and all that good stuff. But yeah, what I noticed is that people have such a grandioso idea of sex sometimes, like overemphasizing and all these things and like making it not the bane of their existence, but just like things that they're over compensating for, whether it be their own sexual expression, you know, what they're worried about, as we mentioned earlier, about, oh, the size matters so much and all this stuff, and like thinking about too much of the external stuff. What matters at that heart center based intelligence, I mean, like making love when you're really activated, that's a whole nother level that people just like can't even fathom, because they're still stuck in unfortunate and programmed, you know, socially conditioned sexual circumstances where, and yeah, there's that drive for that, and like, oh, we gotta with men, you know, we're, you know, like, oh, we gotta be this alpha male and get, you know, first you get to this and then you get to that with the money and then you get the girl and then blah 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 blah. What the fuck is that? The hell, you know?
Little
And like there's
formula.
that artificial pressure put on people, and it's not even like a true, genuine, authentic relationship, right? So it's unfortunate that there's so many generations of, you know, families and kids brought up and raised through these negative feedback loops, and it's like babies having fucking babies, and you know, we're not going to evolve properly through that. So, you know, I'm really glad to have this conversation to really try to help flip the script, make people think about these things, and, you know, make changes in your life to have a better relationship with yourself, be that, you know, refather yourself, and, you know, have a better relationship with the person you love, and really act upon that love vibe for that person, not just lip service that shit.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Thank you for sharing, Derek. Yes, it is. I really can see that. Of course, it's difficult to. But one, I'm going to be a little bit. I don't know if it's good that I speak about that, but you know, I think this is the reason of my divorce. Although it was a very wonderful man, highly protective, I think he was he was the best man I've ever met in my life. You know, in terms of feeling protected. You know, he was a man also taking part in the housing chores. You know, and he was helping as much as he could. You know, at all levels. And I've never had that in my life. But the dark side, because there is a polarity in everything, is that, you know, he likes to have, you know, he was very organized. All his life was very organized. So was his sex life, you know. And okay, I like to have sex 1 or 2 or 3 times a week, or every week, and I think I start feeling bored. Yeah.
Kind of like formulaic, right?
Yes,
Automatic,
exactly.
without
Automatic, yeah.
Yeah, and there can become this very not disconnected way of connecting sexually with your partner that is very like relationally vacant in a sense, you know. And I think I listen to like the music, especially like I have a 15-year-old, I hear the music, the rap as they're listening to, it's so over sexualized, it's very usury focused, using women, you know, objectifying sex as a way of almost like owning people. There's an addictive element. There's really had these power plays and use of control around sexuality, and so it gets so warped. And I think a lot of women have been, and girls are sort of conditioned to submit in a sense to the pressures of a man, or, you know, to have sex, and if you don't, that somehow that you're prude, something's wrong with you, you don't love, you know, there's all sorts of stigmas around, and yeah, I think, yeah, comment on some of this and just how it's leading people to very misguided ways of relating. Oh, we lost your.
It's because society is over sexualized, and so you look at TV commercial, a magazine, you go online, and then, oh, I'm going to have sex tonight. You know, this is how it goes. But you know, it is mindless. Mindless. It has become this mindless activity. You know, and that is what is killing relationships. People don't want to take the time to think about, oh, for example, let's go and kayaking this afternoon instead of having sex, you know. This, you know, I love, you know, a partner who would tell me that, you know, because sharing a real life experience. Because if you can postpone, delay, you know, this intimacy, would it be even a few days or a week, you will see that you are going to enjoy it much more. Yeah, that's the secret. So many couples, you know, many relationships are burning the candles by both ends. They want sex, and after 2 years, there's nothing left. You know, not even good memories, because everything is being consumed. And Mantak in his book also, who is teaching Tantra, is also saying that it is not, this is not the path of happiness, having sex like that, on demand, you know?
Right.
You turn movies, they, you know, wherever you see it, the action, you know, it is really a whole programming that is being put into our minds.
I think even within like the tantric community and there's almost like a over prescribed like formula, a way people are, you know, supposed to set up a ritual, or, you know, and I think that it can become again a disconnection from the actual connection between two people when you ascribe to sort of a formulaic, you know, almost religious type approach, you know, of connecting. So I think I'm hearing you say that really when we're talking about relationship happiness and the sexual component of it, that it's really important to be nurturing the actual human connection in a way, and to pause, you know, put the slow button on, you know, like to that sexual aspect, to allow the true relatedness to happen in a holistic way. Is that what I'm hearing? That's kind of a conclusion you've come to?
Yes, we definitely agree on that, Leslie. And this is me being my main lesson in life, you know. And when I see people, you know, who are damaging themselves, doing what society tells them to do, so, you know, I feel sorry for them, and that's why I want to help, you know, this mentality change, because I feel like there are too many lost souls already today, and we need to come back to our senses.
Yeah, especially when it comes to, I see a lot of young couples who are hooking up really fast, kind of falling in love with, I think, the hormones and the initial in loveness of it all, getting pregnant right away. And then I can count multiple people that I know of that then like are already splitting up by the time the baby's born. you know, there's something missing, some judgment in this process that's getting lost.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, this is, I would say the best way the best way to handle your desire is to be really upfront. Don't play games, you know, just say, okay, I just want a one night stand. No need to sugarcoat it, you know. And so nobody, the more honest you are, the more, the less chance you have to be hurt in the process. Because that's why people go to start to see a shrink most of the time is because of their sex lives. So it is really, really prevalent in society. This, you know, this quest for the soulmate is very important to everybody, but we don't get the right information, you know, from the environment. And yeah.
I also think it's people are acting based on their own, like their own fantasy, the story, the dream in their head, and are not always actually seeing the reality of the situation. And people, I can see it in my own past, especially, you know, where I had certain blinders, I put on blinders where I didn't admit to the intuitions that I had, or the doubts that came in, you know, because I wanted something to be a certain way, and I proceeded as if that was true, only to like wake up to the fact that I was living in a bit of a fantasy, and, you know, trying to get blood from a stone, or, you know. So I think it's like the stages of initiation that Mark Passio talks about is like, stop lying to yourself and don't stop dreaming. I think that that's really connected to relationships and sexuality too.
Yeah. And now that you are mentioning the word fairy tale, I think all these, you know, Disney tales that we hear in our childhood are so damaging, you know. They make you dream about the charming prince or princess, you know, and
happily ever after every time.
That's exactly
Don't
what
worry
I'm
about
saying.
it, folks. You know, like the evil person's gonna get taken down in the end,
Yes,
because everyone's gonna come through, and it's just escapism in the end. You know.
and this is really damaging. Damaging,
yeah. There's a certain sobriety required, I think, for like the ultimately healthy sexual relationship. Yeah, which is kind of, people are, that's kind of, maybe sounds like a bummer or a downer for a lot of people, because they're really seeking like almost more of the intoxication of it than and they don't want it to be like so real sometimes. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, this is, I'm gonna play off that, because, you know, there's a lot of people that are just in it for the dopamine hits, you know, just, and guys lingo like, oh, just bust enough and take off or whatever. It's like, really, guy? But it's just that instant gratification that is kind of just like really, you know, unfortunately driving people's motivation just to go, you know, hit the sack with whoever, and you know, have sex or hit it and quit it or whatever the hell. And it's like, whatever happened to that sacred uh initiation of the improvisation of intercourse, you know, between two people, that kind of stuff. That has that fondness of, you know, beyond just like these chemical hormones that are bubbling up between two people, because like, oh, these people, you know, like, oh, it's so beautiful, this person, and this and that, and the other person feels mutually quite the same, or just, you know, flattered by that. And so there's that the masculine and feminine dynamic. You know, there's going to be one person possibly more attracted to the other, and the other person is kind of like submissive into that person's like interest into that person. So they're just going to go with the flow, because, you know, maybe they're not used to it, and they kind of like that instant gratification, ego validation, if you will. when there's that lack of real love and purpose behind it, in a sense. So there's your one night stand, and if it's a good experience, maybe they'll do it a second, third time, and then kind of over time, when they realize like, hey, we're not that compatible, I don't really like to spend, free time outside of the bed with this person. So, like, where do they go from there? And like, how do they just kind of reconcile or just like be mature adults about it and just be like, okay, this is what it is or was, and thank you for the experience or this and that, we can still be friends or blah blah blah, or like, you know what I mean, instead of just like trying to like one off the other person, or like, oh, I don't need that person, this and that, or
just not talking about it, like you said,
yeah.
Brigitte, like be upfront. And I think that that's missing because we're not really we don't talk openly about these issues. It becomes very like secretive or unconsciously. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Brigitte?
I would say from my experience, many women also, once they feel like seeking when they seek for a relationship, and they tend to prefer a long-term relationship. Women are not really. There are some women who would say, okay, one night stand, no problem, but most women are not like that. And I think it's also the men and women dynamic, that makes it complex, because men feel like they have to play to flirt and promise things that they may not do in the future, and the woman say, okay, this guy seems like he wants to at least to date seriously, and maybe the guy doesn't want that, and then that's how you have you see the man withdrawing himself from the relationship and trying to escape this commitment, and while still trying to convince the woman to continue and see him, and have sex with him. So it is all, I see all the same dramas, the same drama everywhere, Men are less inclined to commit too quickly. Women wants commitment very quickly. Well, that's what I'm saying. And we need a very honest debate about that, Men are capable of commitment, of course, but they need more time. Women seems to be all right with that, after dating 1 or 2 months, they say, okay, we have a steady relationship now. I mean, this is not very wise to think that way. Let things happen organically. Men don't need to promise anything, and women have to accept that. Yeah.
So expand on what is the healthiest way to approach a relationship building.
Yes. The healthiest way. That is really a big question, because every story is different. It depends on on your past and what you have to overcome. For my part, I would say certainly starting as a friendship. Yes, because based on my experience, I say try to have a good friendship with someone, and for a few months, and get to know each other. Yes.
And I think it comes back to that idea of knowing yourself.
Yeah.
And doing your own healing, because how to proceed is going to have a lot to do with your own unhealed relationship wounds, right? Yeah. So being very attuned and honest about where you are at and what work you need to do. And what's hard, I think, is that we often don't see our wounds. We have these blind spots that often are brought to light through a relationship.
Mhm.
and often, when things are feeling all hunky-dory and that people go forward very quickly sometimes in commitments, and then wake up to see these dysfunctions, and hangups from one's past, and then how they synergize together, right? And then it can get confusing and hard to see.
Mhm.
Right. And so I think the idea of slowing things down and doing your own work, and then developing that real honest communication, that vulnerability around these issues. So somehow these things that don't get really talked about directly, I think our culture really would benefit from becoming more, and these things not being taboo, not being hidden. Right.
Mhm.
Just recognizing the naturalness of our sexual nature, and the when we talk about natural law, ultimately, the right to interact with people in any way, as long as it's not causing harm, that there's a mutuality and a voluntary aspect. But I think it gets a little bit confusing, because people do comply, they do volunteer for some interactions externally, but they're going, sometimes many women, that are going against, they're denying a part of themselves that doesn't really want to be doing it, perhaps, and then going forward and getting in deep because of a fantasy or a pressure. It gets very complicated.
I would say that learn to talk about your weaknesses before all the good things that you that you find about, that you think you have, because it's always presenting the beautiful side of yours. It's only working for a while. After a few weeks, few months, you start sending hidden messages, and I think we can all do our best presenting ourselves as almost perfect, but nobody's perfect. So the
People
sooner
putting on
you
masks and all that,
yes, get off the mask, and like exactly, Derek, and talk about your weaknesses. That I think, and I think, I learned to love some people with their weaknesses.
Yeah, there's
That's great.
a psychologist who's also like a comedian. I forget his name, but I was listening to some of his talks, and he was really saying that people should, on their first date, just sort of like lay it all out, their dark, their bad habits, their weaknesses, their issues, like, instead of the kind of common practice of like putting your best face forward and just pretending like you don't have these problems, and then they come out later and there's sometimes resentment and like why almost feels dishonest. He's like, be really honest right up
That
front.
raw, unfiltered, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and I tend to agree with that. And
Totally.
I found, even though that even when you do that, there can be this element of denial or ignorance, where people here I tell something honestly, but then it's interpreted in the other person's mind through their own filter of what they want it to be. I've been guilty of that myself, of reinterpreting someone's statement and putting it through my own filter of my fantasy desire of how I want it to be. So I think I advise people to be really honest with yourself and notice how you're tricking yourself and maybe not hearing truth.
Yeah. Yes, we always often when we start a relationship, at least I was doing that. I wouldn't do this anymore, but yes, as if you have to sell yourself, or I'm the best deal in town, something like that. And this is not flying high a long time.
It's not genuine, right?
No, it's not genuine. Chickens come back home to roost eventually.
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
so yeah, I
Because
don't
we all
have
have fears, right? We all have insecurities
Right,
going
yeah.
into a relationship. And I think people are so afraid, you know, to even broach those things. But like you said, they come out eventually, that the shit hits the fan, and it's, you have to face those things one way or another. So
Yeah, going
better.
back to natural law, Leslie, I want to tail off that end real quick because just like the law of attraction and just like cause and effect and how we can be more the causal point of the effects that happen in our life. And just, you know, having that element of humility. What's up with like the art of humility and just being able to be vulnerable with the person that you want to actually be more engaged with, that you're attracted to, and all that stuff. Like, why are we putting up all these walls and masks and all this stuff for these people? Because we want to, you know, there's that fear of rejection and all this stuff that's behind it all, right? But if we approach these things with that true, you know, alchemical wedding integrated within oneself and have that love for self, then what, you know, things move more fluidly. And I'm speaking from experience. And I'm not afraid of just like, oh, hey, like I'm Derek and this is who I am and this is what I do and this, because you have to understand, like in a world of like almost 8 billion people, there's going to be like maybe even half of the people that are going to disagree with you on whatever the hell that you think or do in your life, and you just have to fucking deal with it, you know. I don't
And
know.
knowing when to walk away too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you
for
have any
sure,
thoughts on that, Brigitte? Like when is there, you know, what are the signals to people maybe that to it's time to say, to walk away?
Unfortunately, I don't have a formula for that, because I think we tend to wait until it is too late. We tend to wait until we can't deal with it anymore, and until there is an explosion, you know, so to speak, and say enough is enough now. That's it, you know. And you know, I would say,
that breaking
but
point.
you have to walk away as soon as you feel that you are losing interest in your partner. It has nothing to do with sexuality, because sexuality still can maintain some balance. Oh, but she's not really what I want, but I have good sex with her or him, you know. And then relationships can go on and on like that for years, and then eventually everything falls apart. So from the moment you lose interest in what your partner is doing, then I would say just initiate a conversation and explain that you need some time, a vacation, you know. But it doesn't have to be permanent, but at least to resituate yourself and reevaluate your feelings, you know.
Yeah. And that brings, I want to ask you a question, because I had a great conversation with a group I'm in called the One Great Work Warriors. And it was called like the dangers of compromise. And like in a lot of relationships, people have to compromise certain degrees of their lives to, you know, accommodate for the other person and vice versa and all this stuff, and trying to find that healthy balance where everyone is happy and, you know, we're not suffering to any kind of degree, hopefully. And, you know, when people are compromising, you know, to a certain level, that's dangerous. You know, it's like they're compromising their own integrity.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is also like
Right on,
keeping in mind not to lose your integrity, right? And not to lose yourself, right? Through codependency, through giving up yourself so much because you want to adapt to the partner in such a way and make them happy because of a fear of losing them, or, yeah.
So what kind of solutions do you see on kind of maintaining that healthy balance where there's not that, you know, dangerous compromise, if you will, and people become divided within themselves because they're giving up their own personal sovereignty to, you know, compensate for their partner, whatever.
You know, I've noticed, and it happened with me a few times, you know, and in one relationship, I was making more money than my partner. And in the other one, he was making more money than I. And there was this, I think the economics is very important also, and really fuels dependency, codependency. And of course, this is one of my other favorite subject, you know, money and how it is destroying the fabric of society insidiously, because few people feel, okay, I'm doing the right thing. I'm not, with my money, I'm not cheating. I'm not fooling anybody. But this is not what they do at the top level. So, and eventually it affects you. And that is that's why I see money as a tool of divide and conquer, for divide and conquer also. But within a couple, within a relationship, it may perpetuate, you know, this submission and dominance, you know, between partners. And this is, first, make sure that it is not, there is no economic factor that is, you know, that is making you stay with a certain person, you know, that is very important, because, and if it does, and if there is a risk there, I would say try to become first financially independent, you know, or don't be afraid to move on, because there are always solutions.
Yeah, I would add another risk, you know, thing to be cautious of is wanting a baby so bad. You know, a lot of people will want a baby so bad that clock's ticking, they worry about that, they connect with someone with the intention of, I want a spouse and I want to have a baby, and then didn't do the front work to really make sure it's a compatible relationship. And compatible in I think a spiritual way, in one's values, in one's principles, seems to be really important. Mark Passio, and I actually think it was in an interview with Maria West, was really sharing his view that a healthy relationship and the relationships that the world needs are not just two people that are focused on looking at each other, but that are sharing a path of moving in the same direction, you know, with a purpose, a higher purpose, a principle towards truth, you know. And I think that philosophical, spiritual connection is, you know, allows two people to be very individual, but yet connected in a very deep, principled way. I like that idea.
Yes.
Yeah, and a good example is a couple that we had on recently, Brittany and Brian yesterday.
Yeah.
I think, you know, this, you know, people that are aligned to this certain pathwork, that are, you know, in a relationship, that's a whole another level. That's that heart-based new humanity that Mari West talks about as well. So much love-evolution to that, pun intended.
Yeah. And I would say don't hesitate also to, even if there is, everything seems to be fine, running okay, you know, don't hesitate to take some vacation on your own, you know, away from your partner.
That's when I had like my
also very healthy,
life crisis, though.
Not to be all the time together.
Because like that comfort zone can breed complacency beyond belief.
Yeah.
And I kind of had like a crisis of consciousness, you know, happily married, you know, 2 years into a loving, you know, marriage, and, you know, I was in France, living in Paris. I loved my life, but at the same time, I was like, I just, you know, lit this fire under my ass. You know, I realized I had to reinvent myself, and just, you know, like, how am I going to be a father to a future son? And like, how am I going to really try to keep my word to my wife of, you know, like keeping that love fresh, and, you know, the longevity of that, and how is that going to look like in the next 10 years and that kind of stuff, and like keeping the married life fun and exciting, and still having that element of love involved in it every single day.
And keep growing as individuals, right? You know, like the solo vacation is, in a way, it's like recognizing that because two people are together, it doesn't mean that you share every single interest or that you need to do everything together, that there's you know, some real growth that can happen. And I think excitement too of the individuals growing and pursuing their own interests, and then being able to come back together and share and help inspire each other and things like that.
Yeah, it seems like you're talking about and alluding to like having a healthy set of space for each individual to kind of keep evolving into their own, but still coming back to, you know, having that balance between the two people that were still on the similar wavelength. With, unfortunately, you know, me and my ex-wife, you know, kind of derailed to a decent degree, unfortunately, but it is for the best. And, you know, I'm still on good terms with her and just like happy she's, you know, found a new love. And
it's like when you love someone, I think you really support them as a human, right? So if it turns out that the path they're on with you isn't the right path for them, like love is really around, I think, release too. And letting go, and I think not expecting that, you know, that a relationship has to be till death do you part. You know, there's like this phrase that gets put into this state created marriage vows and kind of twisted from religion of like till death do you part. It's almost like you're committed, you're agreeing to some contract that's forever, and people have these beliefs that like almost they own the other person. There's a possessiveness and certain control, and you're not supposed to talk to another woman or look at another woman, and all of these I think they're fallacies and confusions about a relationship.
And going along your lines, Derek, you know, men who seek validation all the time tend to be very flirty. They always, they always try to pretend they want relationship with every woman, or you know, or men if they're homosexual, you know. And it is also a big sign, you know. There is a difference between having a good discussion with someone than be flirty, and a woman can sense that very quickly. So I would say if women need, I would say that women need to be more aware also, not just think that because they have, you know, they spend a few nights with somebody that's it, the deal is closed, is made, they have a relationship, you know. It takes a long while to appreciate somebody and to discover somebody. So don't take your time, definitely, and one step at a time, definitely.
Yeah, and watch the fairy tale scripts that are playing out in your head.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. All that programming, we got to deprogram from that. But Brigitte, so we're almost at the 1.5 hour mark.
Yes.
And I wanted you to kind of like, you know, grace us with a glorious conclusion. And I want to take it back to what you you know, wrote to us as far as like, you know, how we're trying to plan out this conversation. I'm not going to read verbatim, but you know, you were talking about wanting to approach first and foremost, you know, and we kind of did, but you know, I'd like to, you know, hear anything you want to, you know, re-emphasize or elaborate more on in regards to like as sexuality as the creative force of the universe and the materialistic expression of the divine, and why it's probably misunderstood, and all these things that you spoke about. So
yes, the whole as just as the Hermetic philosophy states, you know, gender is the principle of gender is the regenerative force in the entire universe. So that's why we need to treat this sexuality with respect, you know. And if we are, from the moment we feel like we can do everything because, oh, it's so good, or, you know, and going down the path, you know, of promiscuity, or, you know, or jealousy or whatever, because that's where if you don't understand what this force is, that's where you are going to go, you know. So this is very important, to respect this gift, you know, that has been given to us from the Creator, by the Creator. Yes. And it's sometimes, you know, I find myself smiling, you know, but no, I am not, you know, I'm not a bigot, you know. This is how it is, you know. Look at nature, how beautiful it is in nature, you know. Everything is in equilibrium, you know, and this is really important to understand that the regenerative principle, that is sexuality, has to be dealt with respect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. Yeah, and recognize that there's a power. There's a power to it. You know,
Yes.
This generative nature is a creation process that will occur regardless of how you approach it. And so you being mindful of the outcome of what you're creating and respecting it from a very deep level, mind, body, spirit, I do think is wise. Yeah. Thank you.
It is that sacred union that you kind of described, and like to put a label on it or whatever. But yeah, like respects to ex-girlfriend that kind of, you know, was really emphasizing the fact, like, and we didn't even have sex, we didn't even meet in person. But I just love the fact that she was on the vibe of just like, yeah, sex, or just making love rather, and rising in love, not just falling in love, is a sacred act, and it should be treated as such. We have to really remember that and be present in the moment with that person, with those pure intentions.
And
those are lacking, unfortunately.
yes.
You know, there's just that self-gratification behind it, like, oh, can't wait to get off on this person because they're so fine or whatever the fuck. It's like, dude, get over yourself and these, you know, lower sense
it's like usury
impulses and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is very true, you know, when you say that love is the most important thing, in life. Not love in the sense, oh, I'm going to hug you, I'm going to, you're my friend. It's just respect, you know. That is the first step to show your appreciation. That is love, you know. That is so. This is what we need to why we need to come together as a society, understand that, you know. And would it be because, like we said earlier, is that in fact we all train of thoughts are destined to follow the same path, you know, in the sense that that we are all here to discover the oneness of life and reconcile with it, you know. Yes. And sexuality is certainly the most important force that help us do that. Yes. And so that we can grow in awareness and also leave healthy children behind, you know, because right now nobody's, when you see the new generation, the millennials, they are not very healthy physically and mentally, you know. They've been very much damaged by the system.
Yeah, unfortunately. Would you have any advice for people to really, you know, keep their hearts open and I feel like, so people have to bear in mind with this whole chakra system and this and that, which is kind of like a limitation to our full potential of not just 7 chakra wheels of energy within and outside of our physical body and our aura, but the fact that if your heart chakra is not activated properly, the higher chakras are not going to be properly activated. So that includes your communication, your throat chakra, your third eye, the crown chakra, that, you know, cosmic consciousness, and, you know, how to just like respect other people's free will. Can you touch on that real quick, as far as like relationships and even like within the act of sex, of, you know, respecting the other person's free will, especially like any advice for men? Because, you know, I did a really fantastic collaboration with Maria West, her spoken word piece with music, and I did visuals on it called, you know, Lover's Touch. And, you know, she touches upon how, like, you know, on the masculine side of things, throughout the history of, you know, sexual intercourse between a man and a woman, just in that context, how the man's touch hasn't always been gentle or divine and properly intended, and that kind of stuff. And so for men to respect women's boundaries and free will, choice and all that stuff, and not, you know, impose or their, you know, action and all that stuff, and testosterone driven, whatever the fuck type of thing.
And I think for women to give clear boundaries too, and know, because I think women give mixed messages a lot of times with what they say yes to or no to, and it gets confusing.
Yes, women are always, most women, I'm not going to say all of them, most women have always a hidden intent, you know. They, even when they feel like, oh, it is going to be for one night or few one night stands, they still go along with it, hoping that the man is going to change his mind and discover that, in fact, that they are fantastic, terrific, and that they have to stay with her. So this is, I think, yes, women need to be more down to earth, realistic, and men, and I would say that men need to be maybe not also stop. Well, both sides need to stop playing the game. Yeah.
And both be patient.
I'm not going to bash one side more than another, because it's all about, you know, interaction.
It's two-way street. You know, I'm a man. I'm just curious on my, you know, counterpart, my brethren, and all that stuff. What we can do to better our side of, you know, helping out.
More sincerity in relationships, especially especially at the very beginning. It's difficult to put a time frame on that, but, you know, just take your time to discover each other. That's
yeah. There's a book called 8 Dates, I think, or 8 First Dates. I can double check the exact title, but it's John Gottman and his wife and a couple other partners. And John Gottman is like a well-known researcher on successes of marriage and relationships. But the book is broken down into 8 chapters, where each chapter is a particular aspect of relationship that is important, you know, especially for marriage is where he's aiming it. But so, you know, one is around commitment, sexuality, vision for the future, child rearing, you know, different aspects where, you know, that ultimately compatibility is important. And there are questions that they encourage a couple to go on a date and then ask each other these questions to explore their thoughts and feelings and expectations around each of these things. And I think that it's a brilliant idea, really, and not done. You know, it's like something up front, like really get to know a person in a deep way to assess some compatibility. And that can save a lot of heartache later, you know. Oops, can't hear you.
I'm muted. Yes, I agree with you. Yes. Yeah. So I think maybe we can
kind of close it up.
Close out the chapter for today, and I don't mind coming back. And I think you are so enjoyable to chat with.
Oh, great! Yeah, we would love to continue to explore this topic, which is so complex and has a lot of depth.
Yes, especially now we have set the tone, so it will be easier for us to come up with new approaches and new dilemmas, you know, that need to be uncovered.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thank you, Brigitte, so
Thank
much
you.
for coming forward.
Bye-bye, Derek. Thank you for making
Yeah,
it possible. And I look
likewise,
forward
yeah.
to
I'm all about
more.
that divine union,
Yeah.
right? And just evoking those, energies and vibes, for people to kind of, yeah, just, pick up, run with, or have that confirmation in and of itself,
Yeah.
if you will. Brigitte, I know you have a great page. I wouldn't call it a website, but you're on a website called Medium, and
Yes.
it's reminiscent of my YouTube channel, Awakening Mind, but yours is The Mind Awakened, and you've posted quite a few interesting, in-depth articles, and
Yeah.
you have a couple that are kind of relevant to what we've spoken about, including, the dangers and
Yes, the first blog.
psychological issues with pornography, if you will.
Yeah.
And anything else you'd like to just touch on before we end this with you?
Yeah. When you scroll all the way down, you will see that I start with natural love and the topic of sexuality, the sex principle. But then it became something much more philosophical and metaphysical, how this and describing more the twisted ways the world is embracing and to drive us towards the
monetary matrix and all that jazz.
Yeah, the monetary matrix, and to drive us on the edge of the precipice. Sorry, of the precipice. So, but I plan to be talking a little bit more about sexuality soon also. Yes,
Great.
the Mind Awakened .medium.com. Yes, that is my.
You have a book coming out, right? You've been writing
Yes,
for a while now, so
yes, I've currently I currently have like 50 pages, and I would like this book to be like about 120 pages, short and sweet, because I want to go straight to the point. But soon, hopefully, by next summer, it will be available on my website and free. It will be a free ebook. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye,
Leslie. Bye.
Bye-bye. We'll see you the next time.
Yeah.